And a happy Monday morning to everyone out there. Today is, of course, Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday, a celebration of his life, and I thought I'd read one of my favorite quotes from him, not just because it's a great quote, but because also very timely given what's going on in the world today, and that is, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. A lot of foolishness going on out here in the world today, so that's why hopefully you came here for just a little respite from all the shenanigans going on in the world, because we don't get political here. We try not to. Just the facts, man. The real Appalachia, as I like to say. Today I will be talking about, of course, January 18th through the 24th. And I got a lot of good feedback on the last week episode, so hey, what the heck, I'll roll forward with it keep posting them on the YouTube. I thought about not doing that, but I was like, because it's a little bit of aggravation, but you know what? People enjoy it. By golly, I'm going to do it. We're talking about January 18th to the 24th. I do want to welcome some new patrons too. We have Brad and Angela Davis, Sean Hanna, and also got some new donors from this past week, and that was Josh Taylor, Patricia Dibble, Barbara Aubrey, D. Simmons Albin. Well, she's not a new one, she's a repeat offender. I appreciate you, D. We've got Teresa Dalton and Vicky Murphy. So thank you all for your support here in the last week, and really means a lot. And it's, like I said, I've sent some of your messages, or I've sent all of your messages, but some of them didn't get through apparently because of spams. But I appreciate it, not just financially, obviously that's great, but it also means a lot to know that people care about what I'm doing and have that kind of support, man. It really fuels me on days like today. I spent this weekend in Cherokee. I went to Sylva, North Carolina, Dillsboro, Cherokee, Bryson City, Irwin, Tennessee, Unicoi, Tennessee, and a couple other stops along the way. I went to Judicola Rock, which will be out pretty soon, which was pretty cool. But I am super tired. Then I have my daughter tonight, and I just got her to bed. So, hey, it's been a rough week, but I committed to doing this, and I think I got enough good feedback on this I feel like, hey, let's roll with it forward. And when I look at names like that, and I realize, hey, a lot of people support what we're doing here, so that fuels me. That gives me that little boost to get me over the top, and gives me, when I start talking about it, I get passionate and get excited, because I was really tired before I started. Now I'm like, yeah, I'm excited about this. I did want to start too with, some of you, hopefully a lot of you, have watched the Christmas in Appalachia that I posted back. It was originally done on CBS by Charles Kuralt, but I replayed it, did a few of my comments on it, and uploaded that video from back in the 1960s. Well, I actually heard this week from someone who was in that video, and that really just made my day. Her name was Evelyn Brock at the time. Now her name's Evelyn Horsley, but I thought I'd read this to you. I don't have any snail mail this week, unfortunately, but I did get some emails, and this is one that really stood out that I thought I'd read on air here. So her comment was, yes, I am one of the children, 66 now. I was 10 in the video. I was a little girl standing second from left. My family moved from Perk Creek just a short time after that video, and my brothers and their families with mommy and I moved north to work in the factories in Tiffin, Ohio. I look back now and we were happy. We did not know we were poor because we were rich with love. Thank you for showing this. I had not seen it before, which means a ton to me. It's like, gosh, I can't believe that, I was able to do that for somebody. And then she followed it up with, since I watched your video, I've been trying to remember back then. One thing I remember being at Perk Creek School was a game we played on the little dirt playground just above the school. It was called Red Rover. It was considered our gym class. I remember the water cooler that we drank water from in the back of the room. I can see it in the video, and we all had our own tin cups we drank from. I also remember going to the spring and getting water. I was told it was still there. Mrs. Sumter was a great teacher. I remember her well. She walked farther to school than the rest of us did. We would watch for her to come walking up the road, and we would go out and join her. I'm guessing she walked 2 to 3 miles one way. Wow. And yes, it was mostly uphill, LOL. I showed this video to my oldest son, now 42, and he could not believe it. He is a flight attendant and lives in California. I think that's the thing, a lot of people don't realize this lifestyle existed, and a lot of people did move away, went on what they call the Hillbilly Highway up into Ohio, Michigan, and a lot of those Midwestern states to get work. And a lot of them just never came back this way. There was the economy in a lot of these places just never turned around enough to make that be a good move for them. And sounds like that's what happened to this family. And thank you so much, Evelyn Horsley. That made my whole week, honestly, probably my whole month. It was so touching to read that, because, what I always hate about these documentaries like that, you know, they stir stuff up, but then you never hear the follow-up on them. You never know what happened to the people, what happened, you know, what was their lives like really outside of that. And that really addressed that for me, and I think for a lot of you folks out here, you'll probably appreciate hearing that too. If you haven't watched it, just go back. It's on this channel here, Christmas in Appalachia, and it was, like I said, it was a little segment from Charles Kuralt for CBS. But with that, we'll get into this week's history lesson. Alrighty, also on January 18th, a lady named Marion McQuaid was born. She was born in 1917 in Caperton, West Virginia, which is in Fayette County. And when I hear the name Caperton, I always think of their former governor, Gaston Caperton, but obviously it wasn't named after him back then. She campaigned to have a day to recognize grandparents. And in 1973, Governor Arch Moore of West Virginia declared that May 27th, 1973 would be Grandparents' Day in the state of West Virginia. Well, that didn't stop Miss McQuaid. She kept on pushing on. She wanted this to be a national thing. So in 1978, in September of 1978, she found out that President Jimmy Carter signed a bill that was going to forevermore have the first Sunday after Labor Day be declared National Grandparents' Day. And starting in 1979, that has occurred ever since then. So she was very successful in that. And in 1989, the United States Postal Service made a commemorative envelope bearing her likeness in her honor for getting this passed. So National Grandparents' Day. She lived out the rest of her life in Oak Hill, and she passed away at the age of 91. Oddly enough, and I couldn't believe this, this is the, if it was Paul Harvey, now you know the rest of the story. She ended up having 43 grandchildren, so you can't tell me she didn't know something. She had a motive for this. So 43 can you imagine 43 grandchildren? Can you imagine the cards she got for National Grandparents' Day? So yeah, no wonder she had a passion for grandparents. My goodness gracious, she put in the time, that's for sure. But I thought it was ironic too to make that the weekend or the Sunday after Labor Day, because nobody labors more than a grandparent usually. So that is a major event from January 18th. Moving right along to January the 19th. The Battle of Mill Springs took place in Nancy, Kentucky, which is in Pulaski County. And it had troops. There was 5,900 Confederate troops under the lead of George Crittenden and Felix Zollicoffer. Felix Zollicoffer, for some reason, had an old Confederate or a Civil War professor that just loved to throw that name around all the time. I've heard it a million times. Felix Zollicoffer. And they battled 4,400 troops, Union troops under the command of George H. Thomas. And it ended up being a Union victory. The Union suffered 39 dead and 207 wounded, while the Confederates had 125 dead and 404 wounded. It pushed the Confederates out of that part of Kentucky. In combination with an earlier battle, the Battle of Middle Creek, they served to push the Confederates back out of that part of Kentucky and back into Virginia until later on, when Braxton Bragg and Kirby Smith would return to do battle with the Union Army. But that was a fairly, for that area, significant battle. And at that time, it was pretty early in the war, and it was rare to see outnumbered Union Army come away with a victory, but it did happen at the Battle of Mill Springs. So that's one thing. And then getting ready to tell the January 19th story, and I might need a little sip from Whipple Company Store coffee cup, which unfortunately no longer exists as a museum that it once was. It was a great place to go, and one of the reasons I keep doing what I do is all these things seem to just disappear. That was 3 or 4 years ago. They gave me that coffee cup for my birthday, and now I can't go there anymore, at least not as a museum. But coming up, this is the big part of this week. So I'm gonna take a deep breath. This might take a while. So January 19th, without further ado, is the birthday of quite probably, the biggest icon in the history of Appalachia, and that is Dolly Rebecca Parton. You know her as Dolly Parton. She was born in 1946 in Sevier County, born in a 1-bedroom log cabin, and her parents' names were Robert Lee and Avie Lee Parton. So her dad was a sharecropper, and I'm using my cheat sheet because this is just too important to screw up. Dad was a sharecropper, and her family was too poor to pay the doctor when she was born, so they ended up paying him with a sack of cornmeal. And I thought, boy, that's a heck of a deal. And then you get Dolly Parton for a sack of cornmeal. That was the first of good business decisions in the Parton family, it sounds like. But anyway, she got her first experience musically with in her grandfather's Pentecostal church at the age of 6. His name was Jake Owens, not to be confused with Jake Owen. That would be a bigger story, though, wouldn't it? You just hear them singing "I Can't Be Alone with You" or "Beachin" or some of that stuff, or just and go down to the honky tonk. Oh, I'm sorry, I got off track. She credits her mother for her musical talent and her dad for her business smarts, of which she's got plenty of both. She started playing a homemade guitar at the age of 7, and her career began to take off at an early age. She played on the old Cass Walker show that was broadcast on WIVK and WBIR radio stations that are out of Knoxville. And she actually even appeared on the Grand Ole Opry in 1959 at the age of 13. She was just barely a teenager. She went on, and Johnny Cash actually introduced her. And I don't do a very good Johnny Cash imitation, but we got a little girl here from up in East Tennessee. Her daddy's listening to the radio at home, and she's going to be in real trouble if she doesn't sing tonight, so let's bring her out here. I think that's I'm saying that much better than what I just did. But so Dolly sang a George Jones song, "You Gotta Be My Baby," and she just absolutely killed that night. She got 3 encores at the Ryman Auditorium, so a star was already born, just barely a teenager. So she recorded her first single at the age of 13, and it was called "Puppy Love" when she was, and that was 1960. She moved to Nashville the very day after she graduated from Sevier County High School, and her early success was as a songwriter. With her uncle Bill Owens, she wrote songs that were recorded by Skeeter Davis, Kitty Wells, and even Hank Williams Jr. Bo Cephas sang a Dolly Parton song. You don't put them two together. That's kind of an odd one, but I can see Kitty Wells and even Skeeter Davis. 1965, she was signed by Monument Records at the age of 19. Monument Records cast her as a pop singer, and despite she really wanted to be a country singer, and they kept trying to force her down in that lane. I guess her voice probably to them sounded poppy, but you got to go with where your heart's at. And so she didn't have a lot of success initially. She co-wrote a song with, she co-wrote a top 10 country hit for Bill Phillips called "Put It Off Until Tomorrow." And after that really changed the game for her. And so Monument Records backed off, and they let her start recording country music. So she got a little bit more control of her career. Dolly married her husband Carl Dean in 1966, and although she never really took his last name publicly, they've remained happily married, to the best of everybody's knowledge, for over 50 years. And he, of course, is notoriously averse to publicity, so it has been claimed, I don't know how true this is, but people said that he's only seen her perform once live, which, well, that would be bizarre. But he's actually now retired. He used to be in asphalt paving business that he ran in Nashville. Her first country single was "Dumb Blonde," and it went to number 24 on the country charts in 1967, which nothing could describe her any less than dumb blonde, although blonde it will, but dumb, not Dolly. Her next single was "Something Fishy," and it cracked the top 20, and it peaked at number 17. Both songs appeared on her first album, "Hello, I'm Dolly." Maybe she got that from Johnny Cash. Hello, Dolly's biggest break came when she was given a slot on Porter Wagner's old television program, The Porter Wagner Show. And as part of his road show, it wasn't smooth sailing, though, to begin with, because she actually filled in and replaced the extremely popular Norma Jean. She'd been on the show for the prior 6 years, so when Dolly came on, it took a little while for fans to warm up to her. In fact, fans of Norma Jean would loudly chant her name and chant for her when Dolly was first appearing with Porter Wagner. So that was a lot to overcome. I'm sure that's hard from the old ego. So Dolly and Porter Wagner, they recorded and released several duets over the next 6 years, and almost all of them hit the top 10 on the country charts. So Dolly, she did have some solo work at the time, and it wasn't nearly as successful. And her and Porter won Vocal Group of the Year in 1968, so they're really a strong team at that point. Porter Wagner convinced her to record a version of an old Jimmy Rogers tune called "Mule Skinner Blues," and that's really what broke her loose as a solo artist. It went to number 3 in 1970 on the country charts. And then, of course, she had her number 1 hit as a solo artist with the song "Joshua." kind of a forgotten song. Dolly went on to tear it up just after that. She really started just hitting home run after home run. She had the song Coat of Many Colors, which told her life story basically, and that's a iconic song that really stays around. She, man, of course, My Tennessee Mountain Home, and my personal favorite, Jolene. Jolene was a colossal hit, and it that really just gave Dolly the confidence she needed to go for the solo career, and that really put her to where she was just too big to stay with the Porter Wagoner, and so she stopped appearing on his show in 1974, and as could be expected, Porter Wagoner did not take that news very well. He was, kind of used to her being around and spoiled to it, and then, of course, with her rising star, that only helped elevate his profile as well. She actually wrote the song I Will Always Love You during that time as a tribute to Porter Wagoner, and, of course, a lot of people are familiar with the Whitney Houston version, which was a massive, monstrous hit off the Bodyguard soundtrack, but actually Dolly Parton sang it first, which a lot of people know that, and who sang it better? It's just the personal preference of what style you like. They both, gosh, you could sort of top Whitney Houston or Dolly Parton. You talk about, that's a clash of the titans right there. So, of course, I'm going to go with the country just because I love country better. But that ain't saying nothing about Whitney. Whitney really put down on that song. There was a tribute to Porter Wagoner, and tried to thank him for the help that he had given her. And so they were kind of still estranged after that. Pretty much till later in his life. They got along, but they were never close like they once were. She actually visited Wagner on the day that he died, so they, fortunately, were able to make amends. Believe it or not, too, the one and only Elvis Presley, the King, wanted to do a version of that song, but Dolly refused. And can you imagine telling Elvis Presley no? Because the infamous Colonel Tom Parker wanted her to sign over half the publishing rights to the song, so of course she did not want to do that, and that was a brilliant move on her part, one of many brilliant moves she's made. 1976, Dolly worked toward having more crossover success in the pop music genre, which is kind of funny that she came full circle. They wanted her to be a pop artist. She wanted to be in country, and now she wanted to expand her profile. So her first success came in 1977 when her album Here You Come Again became her first million seller, and the title track on that went to #1 on the country charts and #3 on the pop chart. In 1980, Dolly had a colossal hit with the song 9 to 5 from the film of the same name, which had Dabney Coleman in it, and of course he started as the boss, and then there was Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda. The song simultaneously topped both the country and pop charts, and along with that movie, that took Dolly to another level popularity-wise across all genres and cultures. So she teamed up with Kenny Rogers for Islands in the Stream, and that was actually written by the Bee Gees, believe it or not. And it definitely has a little bit of a disco vibe about it if you go back and listen to it. And that really was the peak of her recording career for Dolly. Decades following that, she had a few scattered hits like Why'd You Come In Here Looking Like That with Billy Ray Cyrus was in that video, as I recall. And then there was the song Rockin' Years. That was a duet with Ricky Van Shelton, but she really her success on the charts started to wane. And of course, in 1992, the aforementioned Whitney Houston scored a massive hit with her remake of I Will Always Love You, and again, that was on the Bodyguard soundtrack. Her version spent 14 weeks at #1 song on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Amazing. As for Dolly, she bought an interest in the Silver Dollar City theme park back in our home area of Sevier County, and the park was renamed Dollywood at the start of the 1986 season. The park has continued to grow through the years and is said to employ over 3,000 people. It's the largest employer in Sevier County, and Dolly has continued to expand her holdings, which now includes the dinner theater formerly known as the Dixie Stampede. I think it's just now Stampede or Dolly Stampede or whatever she called it, and the Splash Country Water Park. I always call it Dixie Stampede. I probably always will. Just brainwashed. As part of her foundation in 1995, Dolly began the Imagination Library Book of Gifting program, and it began by offering books to children in Sevier County, and now it's expanded to 1,800 communities in the U.S., Canada, and the United Kingdom. The program gives out approximately 1.3 million books a month these days, and Dolly was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1999. So these days, Dolly still records music and is very active in her businesses. She's long been a source of pride for her native East Tennessee and Hillbilly Nation as a whole. She's just a tremendous ambassador for being a caring citizen, as fiercely non-political, which, to me, It's one of her great qualities. I did find out some few tidbits about her that are interesting about her life. She obviously never had any children of her own. She once entered a Dolly Parton look-alike contest and lost. And the contest was for drag queens. So can you imagine being Dolly Parton and losing a Dolly Parton look-alike contest? That'd be a little on the much, but that's a true story. Dolly claims to have never ridden the rides of Dollywood due to motion sickness, fear, and not wanting to shake up her assets. The old, I hate those air quotes anyway. You know what I'm talking about, her assets. If you don't know what Dolly Parton's assets are, why did you listen this long? My gosh. Why did you listen? Anyway. A longtime friend of Billy Ray Cyrus. She is Miley Cyrus's godmother, believe it or not. And the song Jolene was written about a bank teller who kept flirting with her husband, Carl Dean, when they were first married. She found out that the redheaded teller there kept showering her husband with attention, and she apparently he enjoyed it a little too much for Dolly's liking. So Dolly and Carl teased each other about the teller having the crush on him, and went on to inspire that gripping song. And she told him, "You're spending a lot of time at the bank. I don't believe we have that kind of money." And the name Jolene was actually taken from a young autograph-seeking fan, believe it or not. So it wasn't the teller's real name. The first clone sheep was named after her. Dolly is quite well known for her large boobs, and the scientists thought it fitting to name the sheep after her since the sheep was cloned from mammary gland cells. That's the story of Dolly Parton, the little girl from Locust Ridge, Tennessee, who grew up to be just a phenom, just a icon. I would probably say, I don't know, I don't want to be just too hyperbolic, but I tell you, she probably had more impact than any female in the history of the United States. I don't know who has touched that many lives. Maybe there's somebody I'm missing. Oprah Winfrey, I don't know. I can't think of anybody. And mainly to me, for the Imagination Library, of course. You know, my daughter gets those every month, and I look forward to seeing that, and it's just a little thrill to get a little gift like that, and it's got your child's name on it, and getting mail in your kid's name. It's just a special thing, and something, and I've read a couple of those to my daughter, and I think, man, what a great program, and what a great impact she's had. And, you know, of course, Appalachia, with a reputation for lacking in reading skills and that type of thing in certain areas, it's been a wonderful blessing for everyone in this area. I don't know anybody that's got a bad word to say about Dolly Parton. I really don't. She is truly an icon, one of the greatest people of all times. She, I feel like that you can't say too much about her. It's like I don't want to shut up because I feel like I'm still underplaying her, because she is just she has done more than most people would do in 3 million lifetimes. So tip the hat to old Dolly Parton. I'm so glad and so proud that we can claim her as an Appalachian, and she is the pride of Appalachia as far as I'm concerned. Now, her song Jolene, I don't know about that though. I've never run into a woman that was begging another woman to just leave me alone. I usually get more of the Loretta Lynn Fist City. You know, they're ready to fist fight over her, like that. So I guess Dolly's more diplomatic, and Loretta Lynn will put a pop knot on your noggin. But anyhows, that is the story of Dolly Parton. Hope you enjoyed that. That was long-winded, and we're still not done with this week yet. Hang in there. I'll try to speed it up. Anything after Dolly Parton is going to be, you know, so I'll just speed it up here. January the 20th, Patricia Neal was born in 1926, and she was born in Packard, Kentucky. She is known as an actress for Breakfast at Tiffany's, Operation Pacific, and she was Facing the Crowd, the old Andy Griffith movie. She's also known for having a hot, steamy affair with Gary Cooper, and he actually ended up threatening Kirk Douglas once Kirk Douglas was flirting with her. So I thought that was an interesting story to throw in there. And if I'm not mistaken, Patricia Neal died in 2010. So also on that day, John Michael Montgomery was born in 1965. He was born in Danville, Kentucky. And of course, he had songs with Life's a Dance, The Little Girl, I Love the Way You Love Me, and the monster I Swear that some other pop group did and made a big hit as well. He was a huge deal back in the 1990s, the mid-1990s, and he just kind of dropped off. I don't know really what happened, and he's never really recovered from that. And of course, his brother is half of Montgomery Gentry, the half that didn't pass away, unfortunately. Well, I mean, that is unfortunate for him, but unfortunately one of them did pass away, but he was one of the members of Montgomery Gentry. So a happy birthday to John Michael Montgomery out there, and still listen to his music from time to time. Okay, moving on to January the 21st. Phil Stacey from American Idol. That was today's his birthday, so I want to wish him a happy birthday, and then we're going into, I gotta take another drink here, my voice is getting dry. Okay, also on this day, January 21st, in 1824, a man was born by the name of Thomas Jonathan. You know him as Stonewall Jackson. Was born in Clarksburg, Virginia, which is now Clarksburg, West Virginia, as it became in the Civil War. And Jackson had a military career. He was also a teacher at Virginia Military Institute in Lexington, Virginia, from 1851 until 1861, when the Civil War broke out. He was not known to be a particularly popular teacher with his students. He had a lot of personal eccentricities. Yes, that's the word. And he would stand for long lengths of time thinking it was good for his internal organs for some reason. He had some sinus issues. He arthritis, just a bit of a hypochondriac, and he was also not known to have a very good sense of humor. So you can see how that would make him not the most popular professor you would have in history, but didn't seem to hurt his military career. He joined the Confederacy after the Battle of Fort Sumter. He joined, and he really distinguished himself at the first Battle of Bull Run. That's where he was given the nickname Stonewall. Another Confederate, Bernard B., saw him stand with his troops and said he stood there like a stone wall. And that nickname stuck afterwards. And he really, I'll give you a list of the battles he was in, and it was just amazing what all action he did see during the Civil War. He was as part of the Battle of Falling Waters, first Battle of Bull Run, during the first Battle of Kernstown, Battle of Front Royal, first Battle of Winchester, Battle of Port Republic, Battle of Gaines Mill, Battle of Savage's Station, Battle of White Oak Swamp, Battle of Malvern Hill, the Battle of Cedar Mountain, first Battle of Rappahannock Station, how do I pronounce it? Manassas Station, second Battle of Bull Run, Battle of Chantilly. He was part of the Maryland campaign at the Battle of Harper's Ferry, the Battle of Antietam, the Battle of Fredericksburg, and the Battle of Chancellorsville, which would become his Waterloo. Chancellorsville was a victory for Robert E. Lee. He was a pretty audacious guy, and he beat back General Burnside from the Union, even though he was outnumbered. It was a great victory for the Chancellorsville was a great victory for the Confederacy, but Stonewall Jackson went out, and when he came back on a scouting trip, when he came back, he was accidentally shot by his own pickets. So he was a victim of friendly fire, and he was pretty badly wounded. He lost his arm. He had to be amputated. His left arm was amputated and actually was buried away from the rest of his body. And he actually lived 8 more days after that, but he was so weak from his wounds that he succumbed to pneumonia 8 days after he was wounded. So he is buried in Lexington, and he's really just right down the street from where Robert E. Lee is buried. So it's kind of odd little town for that. You got that much of the Confederates' brain trust there, that much together. But his loss was a huge morale blow to the Confederacy and tactical. He was known to be just a military genius. And so once he was dead, that really took the wind out of the sails of course, Robert E. Lee and his troops, and really started the Confederacy into a downward spiral that they never recovered from. And so that was, the Chancellorsville happened in 1863. So up until that point, there was somewhat of hope for the Confederacy, but after that, it really started their prospects really dimmed. And of course, we all know what happened after that. But that is the life and times of Stonewall Jackson. And my old professor at Virginia Tech, James I. Bud Robertson, wrote probably the foremost authority on Stonewall Jackson. He wrote a book about him. So if you're interested in that type of history, I highly recommend checking out his book. He was writing that when I had him as a professor at the college at Virginia Tech when I was up there. So he was really a sharp guy about that kind of stuff. He passed away just a couple of years ago, or a year or so ago. But he really put the work in on the Civil War knowledge and history, so I highly recommend that book. Check it out. Matter of fact, if I remember, I'll put a link here where you can check it out on Amazon. So I'll move right along from Stonewall Jackson into another area. Okay, moving on to January 22nd, Frederick Vinson was born in 1890 in Louisa, Kentucky. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's not Louisa, I know that. I think it's Louisa, I'm pretty sure. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I like to get that right because I hate screwing that one up. He went on to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he served from June of 1946 until his death in September of 1953. And to the best of my knowledge, he was the last Chief Justice that was nominated by a Democrat to date. So that's kind of a strange footnote. Assuming that, I'm pretty sure that's true. Somebody check me on that, but I'm almost positive that's true. Also on January 22nd in 1949, in Brea, Kentucky, a man by the name of J.P. Pennington was born, and he was in the band Exile during their most successful years in the music industry. January 23rd, Flem Sampson was born in 1875, and he was born in Barberville, Kentucky. He was the 42nd governor of Kentucky, and he served from 1927 through 1931. And here, the next person's birthday on the 23rd is just one that really speaks to me. Man, and probably the name may not sound familiar. The name is Rob Garrison. And Rob Garrison was born in 1960 in Wheeling, West Virginia. And he went on to become a member of the most famous, the most elite group in the world, Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai never dies. Unfortunately, he did die in 2019. But he was in the Karate Kid series, and the most recent Netflix phenom, Cobra Kai, he actually had his role, he reprised his role on there before he did pass away. He was plagued with kidney and liver issues, and he died in near the end of 2019, but he played Tommy on the Cobra Kai, and what you may know him for if you watch those movies, especially the first Karate Kid, he's the one that said, "Get him a body bag, man, yeah." And that's probably one of the most iconic lines in film history. It really is. If you watch the movie, it just sticks with you. It's brilliant. And unfortunately, he did pass away, but he left a memory with the "Get him a body bag, man." Get him a body bag, yeah. Sorry. Another person born on the 23rd was a man by the name of Gatewood Galbraith, and he's an interesting character. He was born in 1947 in Carlisle, Kentucky, and he was known for running for governor of Kentucky 5 times and quite spectacularly unsuccessful in those quests. His biggest platform was he wanted to legalize marijuana, which would get him a lot of votes now. He did it at a time that wasn't particularly as popular, but the needle's moving in his direction. He passed away in 2012, but he was known to be friends with Willie Nelson and Woody Harrelson. Imagine that. We're with Snoop Dogg. That's the only guy missing from that, but he was definitely a very colorful personality and was known to be quite confrontational. Him and a fellow named Greg Stumbo got in a good little argument there during a debate, but anyway. Moving along from that, we got January the 24th. Mary Lou Retton was born in Fairmont, West Virginia in 1968, and she was the queen of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. She won an Olympic gold medal in gymnastics, individual gymnastics, and she was everywhere. Bought cover of Wheaties. She was on every commercial because she just had this, but she still does. She still has that smile and just that open friendliness that you just can't help but love her. She's just America's sweetheart. I remember her being referred to as, and she is still just adorable as she can be. She was from Fairmont, West Virginia, 4'9" tall. And last but not least, a fellow by the name of Henry King was born in 1886 in Christiansburg, Virginia, and not remembered hardly at all these days that I know of. A director and actor, he was nominated twice for Academy Awards as Best Director. He had a couple movies, Song of Bernadette and Wilson. The Song of Bernadette starred Vincent Price. So, well, he wasn't the main star, but he was in the movie, and that impressed me because I love Vincent Price. And he was known to work with Tyrone Power and Gregory Peck in a lot of his films for 20th Century Fox. So a name that's kind of forgotten to history, but he was a big player in the early days of the movie industry, and when it was really something to behold. And so Henry King was from Christiansburg, Virginia. And that's a wrap on This Week in Appalachia and in Appalachian history. I appreciate you guys, and if you made it to the end of this, I don't know, you deserve a cookie or something. If there's one person that made it, just let me know, because I don't know that I can make it myself. I don't know that I'll watch this back. Anyway, hopefully next week will be a little bit shorter, but there was a lot of information to get out this week, and I hope you guys enjoyed this because it ain't going nowhere. See ya.